What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto awakened as the Starborn sage, and the strongest women from every world followed his light? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments, and also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. As the man known as the Sage of Six Paths was lying on his deathbed, he requested the presence of his youngest son. Upon arriving, the young man knelt beside his dying father, asking what it is that he wished to speak about. The old sage simply said, "I know I have already given you and your brothers your inheritance, but with you there is something else I must give you. Two stories from my younger years, in which both stories will explain a few things, and help you understand my life in a better way." Now let me begin with the first story. The old sage shifted in his bed, attempting to get comfortable for the first story he needed to entrust to this youngest son, and with a deep breath he started. When I first heard Kami's whisper unto my ears in my younger years, she instructed me to meditate on top of the highest peak for 31 days, and 31 nights with no food or water, and to not waver while in my meditative state. She said to me that I would have her specifically guarding me until the 31 days and nights have passed. The old sage started, taking a deep breath before continuing. I went along with what was spoken to me by Kami, and ventured for the highest peak around. Once I achieved getting to the top of the peak, I did as instructed, and sat atop the peak and started meditating in a Zen position. Once I started, I felt the whole world shimmer, and the after image of the cold snowy peak I sat atop of was faded from my memory as a starry landscape played before me. I then heard Kami whisper into my ears once more. She said, "Put your soul into your stomach, and concentrate on the flame burning brightly from within, and don't break your concentration until the 31 days and nights have passed." Her voice said to me, pausing for a minute as if waiting for me to comprehend what she was saying, before speaking again. Flashback. While in this state, my child, the stars will turn over to let the sun refresh the world of the cold night as accustomed to in your world. When you no longer hear my voice, all but one star shall shine upon you, showing that one day has passed you by. Kami instructed, once you have passed 31 days and nights, you will understand the questions your soul is asking you, and bring about your destiny. Kami finished as her voice faded from my mind. Flashback end. After the trials of my meditation passed, I came to understand that the flame that Kami was speaking of, was in fact the very will of chakra, waiting to be released to the world of mankind. The sage finished before he started coughing a little, while in slight pain. Calming his coughing fit, the sage continued on. After descending the peak, I noticed that I had only been atop the peak in which Kami instructed me to go to for only one day. That must have been what Kami herself meant when she said she'd provide me with her protection in my trial. He spoke before taking another deep jagged breath to speak again. I also realized that when she said I'd have to go without food or water and survive on sheer will alone, that she was testing my mind, body, and soul at the very extreme, in hopes that I pass her test so that I may prove worthy and true of the destiny that was brought upon me since my birth. The sage paused for a moment to gather his thoughts. After descending the peak, I quickly started teaching 6 of the closest people I had to me from my childhood since my older brother left, that had the flame from within, bringing them along with me on a journey across the lands, so that I may teach the world of the ways of the Ninshu religion. The sage smiled, thinking about his 6 chosen companions from his younger years, before continuing. As my chosen 6 followers and I ventured upon the warring lands, spreading my teachings and religion of Ninshu to the people. I quickly noticed that upon my arrival to new lands that I was affecting those around me greatly by just my presence alone. When I would interact with new people in the different lands, my vision would blur for a split second, showing those before me in gray with a light blue haze around them with a speck of blue from within the people. Upon gathering the people I spoke to, the more the ones around me tried to grasp what I was teaching them about the ways of Ninshu, and depending on how they took what I said to heart, that small speck of light blue from within would grow to a smaller, but yet still noticeable blue flame, similar to the one from within me but much smaller. The sage explained before carrying on. When those that chose to listen to my words and knowledge continued doing so, the small blue flame from within changed once again, creating thin blue lines throughout the person's body, jetting out directly from the flame to all parts of the body, conjoining with all muscles and joints. I realized that when those who followed my teachings had reached this stage, that they knew enough of the Ninshu ways to pass on to others. So I'd leave them with the parting words that they should spread what I have taught to them, to those who are closest to them, so that they may come to the understanding of what it means to be of the Ninshu sect." The wise sage finished while deep in thought for a few moments. After time passed and the chosen six that I held closest to me continued our travels spreading Ninshu to the lands, I received Kami's whisper once again. She came to me while I was in my daily meditative state, the very same Zen meditative state that I used to undergo my trial atop the tallest peak. She spoke to me in the same starry landscape I witnessed from before, and slowly a figure appeared within my mind, revealing a beautiful woman with long white flowing hair and beautiful light blue piercing eyes, dressed in a long flowing white robe. Flashback. Kami was looking at the young sage before her that she had chosen to speak to. "You have done well, my chosen one. The six you hold closest and dearest to you will not go unrewarded for their efforts in helping you along the ways of your journey. For it is time for them to hear my voice, and become an even greater help to you than before." Kami finished. The sage took a breath of air into his lungs before speaking. "If that is what you choose, I thank you greatly for the wisdom you have helped me find, and hope that my chosen six followers find the answers to the questions you have for them." The said to the divine being before him. Kami giggled to herself, causing the sage to raise an eyebrow in confusion to what he had just heard from Kami. Kami, seeing her sage's confusion, spoke up. "You need not worry, as for I only have a gift for your chosen six, one for each of them." Kami explained. As the sage processed what he had been told, Kami spoke out. "Your first follower shall receive the gift of attraction and repulsion using his flame from within. He shall be called the Diva Path. Your second follower shall receive the gift to transform his body to metal and with it be able to summon weapons of any kind with a mere thought using his flame from within. He shall be called the Asura Path. Your third follower shall receive the gift of being able to read another mind by placing a hand on a selected person, while pulling the selected person's soul out of the body ready to pass judgment upon them. If the selected person he puts into judgment relents, he shall live, and keep his body and soul. If the selected person refuses and remains on the path of sin, then the selected person shall have their soul devoured by the Shinigami, and the person shall fall into the underworld. This follower shall be called the Human Path. Your fourth follower shall receive the gift of summoning animals of all kinds to support and aid you in your journeys, allowing humankind to become one closer to animal kind and nature alike. She shall be called the Animal Path. Your fifth follower shall receive the gift of absorption. He shall be able to protect you and your other six followers with the ultimate defense by being able to absorb any attack consisting of chakra. He shall be called the Preta Path. Your sixth and final follower shall receive the gift with two abilities, one for interrogation and restoration by using the King of Hell himself. He shall be called the Naraka Path." Kami finished the explanation of her gifts that she was going to bestow onto her young sage's followers. The sage was about to speak up and ask a question but saw that Kami was once again about to speak to him. Seeing that the sage was going to hold his question for later, Kami continued speaking. "Now, my chosen one, while your six followers shall receive these special gifts from me, you shall not be left out," Kami said with a smile on her beautiful face. When the sage heard that, he spoke up, interrupting the divine being, and spoke out. "Kami-sama, just you sharing your wisdom with myself is a gift of such greatness that I do not wish for anything more," the sage said with respect to the woman of all creation. When the sage didn't hear anything after his words, he studied Kami's face, and noticed she had a small smirk on her face, and closed her eyes before speaking once again. "You are truly worthy of being my chosen one, my child. But you shall receive this gift from me to help you continue on your path in this life, as well as your next. For as you shall receive the gift, no one person shall ever receive again, for it is you alone that shall acquire this gift. It cannot be passed down in any means of teachings, nor can it be passed down by just your blood alone. You shall receive the gift of life and death," Kami explained, slightly shocking the sage with her words. The sage looked at Kami with nothing short of confusion expression on his face when he heard what Kami had said just a moment ago. When Kami noticed his once again confused expression, she knew that she needed to go into further detail on the matter. "I understand your confusion, my child, for as any human can stand up and kill another human or animal, but what I speak of is life and death in its truest form. You shall be able to revive those who may have died before their time or even those who have passed on long before you. You also will control the aspect of death as well, in some sorts the same way your third follower, the Human Path, can. But The difference between you and him will be the key factor that when you put a soul at the Shinigami's door, you shall be the one to present the soul of the fallen to the Shinigami, so that he may put the soul into either the afterlife or put the soul in hell. With this gift you shall gain an understanding even greater of what life and death is, so that when you grow of old age and come to face the Shinigami yourself, you can ascend beyond that of just a human. As the one chosen by myself, the other divine beings such as the Shinigami and Yami alike all have been told of your role to this world, and none of which shall interfere in your way on your journeys. Kami paused for a minute to let the sage comprehend her words before speaking up again. Each of them shall share their wisdom to you at different points in your life, so that when you pass on you may let the light fade from your eyes not in fear, but in understanding of what thy life was meant for. Kami explained and paused for a moment, seeing the sage with a thoughtful expression on his face. After putting Kami's words permanently into his mind, the sage calmed his mind down, and thought of the one question that was tugging at the back of his mind. Kami-sama, I shall humbly accept your gift, and use it so that it may better mankind and furthermore shed peace unto this world, not out of fear, for one another, but out of respect and understanding between one another. After the sage's last words left his lips, and the air from his lungs, he looked into Kami's face once again to see that she had a genuine smile expressed outwards for me to see. I see, you shall do just fine, my child, as I have nothing but high expectations in which I don't see falling ever in you. Now as far as my gift unto you, when you go back to the world around you, search for the nearest pond of clear water, and look upon your reflection to see the gift that I have given to thee. Your eyes shall no longer be the pure blue that only a pure sapphire can hold a light to, but they shall be a lavender color of purple with no whites in them, representing that your eyes do not only look forward to one point of the world, but to all aspects of everything around you. You will also notice you will have 6 black rings around your pupil, each representing the gifts of your 6 chosen followers that will be blessed by myself, becoming your 6 paths to peace. Your pupils will be representing yourself as the center of all mankind for the future to remember by, and you will become known to the outer world as the outer path, and will take the name of the Sage of 6 Paths. Kami explained with her smile still ever present on her face. Now my child, it is time for you to carry on with your destiny, and with your 6 paths you shall bring mankind together, and start the means to bring the world unto the road to true peace. With that Kami faded from the starry landscape that the two had conversed in. The sage felt his soul and will tugging at that back of his mind. With that feeling he felt as if that was his cue to leave his meditative state, and also faded from the starry landscape with the last whisper from Kami that appeared to come out of the air itself. She said, "Speak to your chosen 6, and tell them that they each must all meditate in the Zen meditation position around you standing in the middle. You must close your newfound eyes, and focus solely on the fire within you. Once this is done for 1 hour, your chosen 6 followers shall be reborn into the 6 paths." With that the voice disappeared from the sage's ears and mind. Flashback end. When I came out of my meditative state I saw the world in a light I've never thought could have fathomed. Everything was so clear and I could see and sense the life force of everything in nature. The wind, the earth, the water, the lightning that was dancing through the sky, and the small fire that my chosen 6 had created to indicate where I could find them. At that moment I knew that every one of the elements were part of my will and that I could use to further my journey to achieve my destiny. The old sage said as he took a few extra deep breaths to calm his heart rate before speaking again. Knowing that what he had to say next was both saddening to him and painful to relive by thinking about it. Once back with my chosen 6 they all noticed my eyes have changed and I gave a very short answer to saying, it was Kami-sama's will for my eyes to change this way. And told them that I would give them a better answer once we did as instructed by our Creator. My followers, and I did as I told and prepared the circle which Kami told me from the air around me as I was leaving my starry landscaped mind. The sage started but stopped to adjust his old and dying body before continuing. When they were meditation in the circle around me, and I did as I was instructed, the allotted hour had come to pass. At the very same moment of the last minute of the hour, all of their eyes sprang forward with understanding and knowledge of what they must do. What I didn't know was that they were told and that they had an extra purpose now, one which I wouldn't be known of until my battle with the Jubi. Flashback. The sage's 6 followers, all while surrounding the sage with their eyes closed, found themselves in the same starry landscape that the sage had been in when he had spoke to Kami. Each of them looking around to see what was going on stopped examining the area around them. When their eyes met the figure of a woman with white hair, she spoke up to them. You 6 chosen ones shall protect my sage of 6 paths with your lives, and are bound to do so until the light fades from your eyes, and your bodies return to the earth. Don't not be afraid, my children, as for you 6 are special to me. And as such, when you pass away from this world, you shall forever be by my side, watching the world below with smiles on your faces, as to what it has become from the sacrifices of your lives. There will be a great evil in the world within the century of your lifetime. And when this great evil comes, you 6 will die in the battle that rages. When that battle happens, remember my words to the fullest of what your roles are in your lives. Protect the sage of 6 paths. He may be the strongest alive, but he is also still human, and he will need to be shown the other sides of what it means to be the chosen one of this world, and through you 6 of passing that will come to be. Kami explained to the 6 followers that would be known as the sage's 6 paths. Flashback end. After my 6 paths awakened their gifts, when their eyes opened, we set out once again, reaching farther east, spreading ninshu to all those who would listen and take to heart. The old sage said before reaching for a glass of water that was on his beside table, and took a drink with shaky arms. Taking a drink and setting the glass back down to where it once was, the sage continued on with his tale. 5 years after the awakening of all our gifts from Kami, that we were faced with our biggest threat to, in which I was teaching unto this world. The great and all-powerful Jubi, the guardian of the world that kept mankind in check for when they rose up and tried to take over the world. On that 5th year we were locked in battle with the Jubi for what seemed an eternity. For only our group of 7 could sense where the Jubi was. It wasn't very difficult to find it, but stopping its rampaging was a completely different matter at hand. People all across the lands were scattering to avoid the beast that was going to eliminate them all. After noticing myself and my 6 paths, they all started gathering around where the 7 of us were. No longer afraid of the beast before them, almost as if the masses found comfort in our appearance, and looked to us with hopeful eyes, watching as the 7 of Kami's chosen ones stepped forward to stop this terrible beast. Like a 7 that could sense the Jubi could sense us as well, and upon it sensing our arrival, it stopped all of its rampaging and killing, and turned its attention solely on us. None of the people present, nor any of my 6 paths, or myself, could ever have thought what happened next. The Jubi spoke in a massive booming voice. May the chosen one step forward so that I may cleanse this world of its arrogance. The sage tried speaking loudly to make what he was trying to portray to his youngest child easier to understand, but trying to yell caused him to once again start coughing violently, and beckoning for the glass of water once again. Receiving the glass of water from his youngest child, and drinking it once more. The sage continues his story after calming himself back down. It may have only been 1 sentence, but that 1 sentence was all it needed to say for us 7 to know what was going to and need to happen. The Jubi needed to be dealt with. When the battle started, and the battle of wills between us 7 raged against the massive guardian of the world, we all felt something inside of us stirring. The sage said, letting his son ingrain his words into his memory. The feelings inside of us propelled our attacks on the guardian even harder, inflicting whatever damage we could on the beast, slowly turning the tides of the battle for that of mankind. Minutes became hours, and hours became days, and as the battle raged on, animal summons struggled to break through the Jubi's defenses. Kunai were raining down on the guardian. Swords were being slashed expertly, trying to inflict any critical damage possible, and powerful jutsus alike being thrown at the beast in rapid succession in hopes to inflict mass damage. The sage paused, getting to the part that saddened his heart, whenever his mind brought him back to these memories. It wasn't until the 8th day that we suffered our first loss. The animal path was running low on chakra, and with her summoning so many summons and using whatever energy she had left for sword attacks, she found herself on her last legs of her life. Planning her next strike, she went in with the only thing she had left and went to slash at the beast once again, but only this time the beast simply threw one of its arms in her direction and slammed her to the ground, effectively killing her. The sage said quietly, on the 10th day of the battle we lost 2 more. The Preta path and Naraka path were getting in the same position that the animal path was put in 2 days ago. They were trying to tag team the Jubi, using diversion attacks for the others to use as diversions. Using their respected gifts from Kami whenever they could, they quickly found themselves in a tight spot, knowing that they were essentially the defenses and last hope of the group, They turned back to set their sights on the others, and as they were about to try and reach to the others, they heard the Jubies roar and looked back to see an oncoming attack set on ending their lives. And noticing the speed of the attack and the lack of chakra and energy to escape the attack, they said a silent prayer wishing for my victory in the end and let their deaths come to them. The sage said in the same quiet, saddened voice as small tears were building up in his soft lavender Rinnegan eyes. On the 13th day we lost two more. The Asura path and the human path were the next to fall to the Jubi. After 13 days of constant battle they were bloodied, bruised, and sleep-deprived, and in the afternoon of the 13th day the human path collapsed from chakra exhaustion, essentially stopping his heart. The human path, however, seeing his comrade and friend collapse not too far away from him, ran to his side to see if he could help him. But before he could even reach his comrade, he was unfortunately caught in one of the Jubi's smaller Bijudama that it fired to for sure take out the Asura. With no time to block or escape, the smaller Bijudama slammed into both of them, killing the human path, and launching both of the recently fallen away from where they once were, and throwing them harshly to the ground. He finished, clearing his throat and trying to control his emotions over never forgetting the memories of his fallen closest friends. On the 14th day of the battle, only I and the Diva Path stood against the beast. Diva Path went in for another attack using his gravitation gift from Kami, trying to throw a giant piece of a cliffside that had fallen during the battle, and it was quickly apparent to me that he was not going to last much longer, as he was shaking uncontrollably while trying to muster up the amount of chakra to lift and propel the giant stone to their foe. With that thought crossing my mind, the Diva Path's block of stone was batted down from the air. With the Diva Path out of chakra, he quickly grabbed his sword, tightening his grip, and charged the beast for an aerial attack, but was quickly swatted down for not having the speed to get past the Jubi's defenses. Hitting the ground hard from the Jubi's counterattack, creating a small crater in the ground, I rushed over to him quickly to see if I could heal him in any way, but when I came to his aid I saw death quickly approaching him. At his side he turned his head to me and said in a very quick voice. The sage said with a choked-up voice with tears welling up in his eyes. Fear not, my friend, for as this was our duty and role to aid and protect you in this battle. This battle is Kami's test for you to overcome, and once you do, the world will be in a new age. Farewell, my friend. The sage finished with the tears that were welling up in his eyes rolling down his aged face, showing his youngest son just how hard that his father took the deaths of his 6 closest friends. Drying his eyes and clearing his throat once more, the sage muttered a small apology for letting his emotions get the better of him in his last days in the world. I'm sorry, my son, I know I do not have much time left for this world, but it still pains me that my closest companions left this world so much earlier than I will. Letting out a sigh, the father of the young man finished. Let us continue on with the story. Neither of us moving for what felt like an eternity. I was stricken by every kind of emotion and feeling a person could feel. I was stricken by sadness for my closest friends' deaths. I was angry at myself for not being able to protect them. I was on the verge of giving up and losing all hope at winning this battle, because on the inside, I was simply hurting and torn apart. My gifted eyes fell to the ground as I felt the tears slowly welling up in my eyes and slowly roll down my cheeks. And with a grief-stricken heart I looked around the battlefield and let my tear-filled eyes look upon my fallen closest comrades and friends in what I felt as to be my last moment in life. When my eyes came back to where the Diva Path laid, I wiped the tears from my face and looked to the ground. I felt what I thought at first was more tears. Something felt off. It felt as if my eyes were leaking power right out of my eyes in liquid form. I put my hand to my face once again and gently touched the right side of my face and saw that blood was in fact falling from my eyes. At the realization, something changed within me to where my head began to hurt and my mind started getting fuzzy. My eyes hurt. They started hurting so bad I thought I was going to die from the pain alone. I closed my eyes, trying to let either the attack of the Jubi come and end my life, or trying to let the pain dull enough to where I could fight just a little bit longer. As my eyes were closed, and all seemed black, I started seeing in my closed eyelids what seemed to be a reflection of my eyes. My lavender purple eyes with 6 black rings around the pupil. Then something else happened to them. The usual lavender color of my eyes turned blood red, and slowly I saw tomes appear on the rings of my eyes. The sage said in a soft voice. As they appeared, I counted 10 of them when they slowly stopped forming. I was confused by this, but when I tried to think about what they meant, I was asked this question from seemingly nowhere. Flashback. A shadowy figure appeared before the emotional sage filled with despair and spoke to him. Do you wish to fight? Or do you simply wish to let all of these people in the world die because you were too grief-stricken by your friends' deaths that you couldn't fight back? Whatever Kami ever sees in you, I have no clue, because what I see is just pathetic. Why do you even try? Why do you even care? Why is it that you, one lowly human being, think that you could stand up against the guardian of the earth? The figure questioned. Startled by all the yelling that was going on in his head, the sage whispered back. Because it is my destiny to show true peace, and how to achieve it in this world. The sage answered. The voice of the shadowy figure then started laughing harshly at the sage's words, and then spoke out. How can you ever even bring yourself to say that when you are in this pitiful state? You have no conviction in your words like you had before this. You have no desire to fight for this world anymore. So let me ask you this. One time, and one time only before it all ends. What are you going to do? The figure asked harshly. The sage responded his answer in a quiet voice, but it seemed the figure within the room with the sage didn't hear his answer. What was that? The figure asked in a demanding voice. Once again the sage spoke his answer in a softer voice, but a little louder. I asked you a question, human. Now answer me right now. The figure screamed at the sage, who was startled by the figure's tone of voice. The sage snapping his head up, and with his eyes directly bored into where he thought that the voice of the figure coming from, he saw a figure. To the sage, the only way he could describe the shadowy figure that took on a form in front of him was by only saying that it was that of a true demon. But this demon had a human male's body, black spiked hair that in the front looked like two horns while the rest just went wild down past his shoulders, and he was dressed in what seemed to be similar attire to the high-collared houri he wore, except he saw he had a glowing red necklace that had 10 red tomes on it. But the most noticeable feature about this dark-shaded figure was that of his eyes. They were so similar to my own, except they were not the lavender-colored eyes with 6 black rings in them. They were blood red, with 6 rings in them with 10 tomes evenly placed within the rings of the eyes. As the sage's eyes were still locked on figure's eyes, he screamed back to the figure before him. I said I'm going to fight. I am going to win. And I will bring about what I was destined to do. With the sage's answer clearly out in the open, the demon showed a smirk on his shadowed face. Then in his confusion of the demon's smirk, the demon before him stepped forward, and somehow the shadowed figure lit up, and before the sage was none other than himself. With a smirk still ever present as he held his fist out forward, as if asking the sage to do the same. Acting on instinct, the sage raised his fist to the figure before him in a similar fashion a few inches away from his. As he stretched his fist forward to the figures, their knuckles tapped together, then the demon spoke to the sage in a calm voice very similar to my own. I am but a reflection of you. I feel just as you do, and even now as you're hurting, I am as well. I was sent to you by Yami himself to aid you in your journey. I was told that when I came before you, you would be able to fight with not only a stronger resolve to fight for this world, but with a better understanding of the balance of life and death, just as the gift Kami-sama herself gave you. The reflective figure of the sage explained. The reflective sage put his other hand to his face, and pointed to his eyes and went on to say, my eyes that are similar to yours, are a clue of sorts to what you need to do out there. The red of my eyes represents the bloodlust that I feel. I know that we want peace, but this is a side effect from the event that you are facing right now. The 10 tomes represents what is within myself. To be like me, you need to do this. With that he passed along a thought to the sage's head, and instructions for what to do when he goes back to the battlefield with the Jubi. The sage nodded his head to his reflective self and responded, I thank you for getting me past my grief, and pass along my thanks to Yami-sama. The sage saw him nod his head, and with that the world blurred back to the battle with the Jubi. Flashback end. With one deep breath I stood straight, and flew through hand signs until I stopped at the last one of the chain, and with it I raced forward to the Jubi at a speed it hadn't expected. Stopping for a moment to take a few more shaky breaths of air before starting again, the sage started speaking once more, nearing the end of his tale. Flashback. As golden chains of chakra erupted around the battlefield, wrapping around the Jubi's massive body. The golden chains slammed the guardian down to the ground hard. Before the sage closed in on the Jubi with the last part of his attack in his head already, the sage set forth racing through a number of hand signs again at a quick pace yet again, preparing for the do-or-die moment. Everything rested on his will to live on and protect the world from the massive beast before him. Holding his last hand sign with just his left hand, and with his right hand the sage struck forward in an open palm with a red and black mist-like glow covering it, and slammed his palm onto the body of the Jubi, and yelled out. Sage Arts. 6 Paths 8-Prong Elemental Seal. With an intricate pattern quickly spreading outwards on the Jubi's body from the sage's outstretched hand. The Jubi started glowing momentarily before slowly being drawn into the sage's body. Flashback end. With my attack called out, the Jubi let out a monstrous roar of protest that lasted until it was sucked in through my palm that was against its body. As the last of the Jubi was gone, I looked down at my open bloodied Haori, and when my eyes rested upon my stomach I saw the seal that I placed upon myself. I knew that by doing this I was showing the world that I was sacrificing my life as just that of a gifted human, to that of a Jinchuriki. After the battle was over, everyone saw me as the savior of the world, and with that people all over showed interest in following the ways of Ninshu. The sage said quietly. My eyes stayed the same lavender color, and the 6 rings stayed the same, but I figured out whenever I call upon the power of the Jubi within me, my eyes turn into that of what my reflection self had. The power that went through my body when I called upon the Jubi's chakra was unbelievable, and couldn't be put in proper words to justify the feeling it gave me. All I knew for certain that a power of such great magnitude should never grace the lands of mankind ever again. The old and dying sage said in a serious tone. After time the land started grasping Ninshu and it became part of the norm. The way of the ninjas was coming into the world and strive, and for that I was happy. It wasn't until much later in my life Kami had come to me again while I was meditating. She said for me to pass this unto my youngest son while on my deathbed, and to follow through with what she had instructed me to do. I shall now pass this on to you. She said, when one looks upon the aspects of why thy's life came to be, and thy's purpose in this world while in deep meditation, while holding 9, seek out the name of 9, as well as his fist. Only when thy has received 9's name and fist may the soul of thee understand the 2 questions thy has come to ask oneself. Thy will receive the answers thy is seeking. With the answers a change will occur both in self and upon the world. The sage smiled after finally being able to complete Kami's last request for him. And that my son is how my life came to pass, but for my life is just a part of the overall perspective of things. There is more in which I need to tell you before I pass. It is about the Sage of Time. But for now my child, let me rest, for I need to save what little strength I have left to tell you the rest before I leave this world. Fear not, because I know without a doubt that tomorrow is my last day in this world. The sage said with a small smile on his face to his youngest son. The sage's youngest son bowed deeply to his father, and bid him farewell for the night, believing his wise old father's words, and said that he would see him in the morning to finish their conversation. As the youngest son left his father's bedside, he put everything his father had said to him permanently into his mind so that he may remember it when he had the chance to write everything down on a large scroll for future generations after him to learn from. But for now he was tired, and sleep was the first thing that came to his mind as he walked to a spare guest room in his father's house. The next morning, the beautiful sun rose above the mountains early the next morning, and with it the youngest son of the great sage prepared himself for his father's next story that he was inheriting. Preparing a small breakfast for his father, the son brought the food as well as a glass of water with him to his father's room. When he reached the door to his father's room, he knocked politely, and asked permission to enter. Hearing his father's voice granting him permission to enter, he opened the door, and went to resume his position at his father's side same as the night prior. "Good morning, my child." The old sage smiled weakly. "Good morning, father, I brought you some breakfast before you pick up where we left off." The son said in a soft, kind voice. "Thank you, my child, please set it on the table over there. I will eat it after I have finished the last part of your inheritance." The sage said with a smile on his face. "I hope you are ready for me to begin, my son. I believe my time is coming soon, so let us begin right away." The sage informed. "I am ready, father, go ahead." The son spoke while nodding his head for his father to begin. Closing his tired and baggy eyes, while taking a slowly drawn-in breath of clean air, the dying savior of the world prepared himself for the last bit of what he wanted to pass down onto his youngest son. "When I was a young man of the age of 13, I was thrown into the chaos of this world of warring lands. The sage started. My mother and father had both been killed when a large group of bandits came over to our peaceful farming village, killing all of those in their way, and stole whatever they desired. The sage explained before taking in another jagged breath of air, so that he may continue. My older brother, the only blood sibling I ever had in my life, and I fled from our family's small farmhouse after our parents ordered us to run as fast and as far away from the village as we could, but they couldn't say anything else to my brother and I, because a few bandits broke into our home and killed them immediately after breaking in. The sage said with a sad frown gracing his face while thinking about the haunting memory that has plagued his wise old mind ever since it had happened. My brother and I ran as fast as we could away from our home village, heading towards a not too nearby small fishing village. When we reached the small fishing village a couple days later, we searched for a place to stay in until we could gather a plan on what we would do now that everything we had known to love had been taken away from us. After sleeping outside for a couple of nights, we found by a very kind monk who took one look at our battered clothes and tired eye, and asked us what our story was behind our current situation. After explaining to the monk that our village had been invaded by bandits, and that everyone we knew was either killed or sold into slavery, the monk told us that we were welcome to stay at his small temple until we had the means to survive on our own. The sage finished with a scratchy voice. "Would you please hand me the glass of water, my son?" The sage asked politely. "Of course, father," the son replied, while reaching for the glass of water and handing it to him. Drinking the glass of water slowly, the sage pulled the glass away from his lips, and weakly held the glass as far out from his body as he could manage. His son, seeing his father's already deteriorating strength disappearing, swiftly reached of the bed that his dying father was laying on, and grabbed the glass. "Thank you," the sage said with a small smile. "It seems my time is drawing nearer as we speak. I need to finish this quickly," the sage said with his smile still on his face. 4 months had passed since the death of our parents and arrival of the small fishing village, and it was my brother's 16th birthday. I noticed he was acting strangely ever since our parents were killed, but I knew that like myself he was hurting inside even worse. My brother had lost the love of his life when the bandits attacked our home village. My brother spent as much time with his love as he could, from the time they were both 12, and with him losing not only our parents, but his love as well, completely devastated him. The sage explained sadly, while thinking about his brother. 2 days after we arrived in the small fishing village, and began living at the kind monk's temple, my brother told me that he was going to be gone for a few days. After he had left, and returned back, my brother was forever a changed person. I tried to approach him and ask him what was on his mind, but whenever I had asked him what was on his mind, he said for me to not worry about him, and that he was fine. The sage said with the same sad look in his eyes. A couple days later, my brother's odd behavior got worse as he disappeared with no indication of where he went. A day after he had disappeared, he came back to the fishing village, and told me that he had to leave me for now. Before he left, he said to me, "I am truly sorry that I have to leave you to this world and its problems to fix, for as Kami has whispered unto my ears what I need to do for this world, but know that for I shall return a generation before you do again, and that I will always love you, my Tuto." With his last words spoken, he was engulfed in a black and red light, the black outlining the red while swirling around each other almost as if the colors were dancing with each other. As the light intensified, my brother started fading from my sights, with a smile on his face as he slowly said, "See you soon, Tuto." What I saw before he completely disappeared completely confused me, as he no longer looked like my older brother. Gone was his usual red hair, and dark blue almost violet-colored eyes that our family shared. As he faded away to wherever he went, I saw that he had black spiky hair, and his eyes were that of the purest sapphire. It wasn't until I reached the age of 16 did I gain any insight on what happened to my brother. The sage explained to his youngest son, "Nobody that I spoke to knew anything, or even knew that my brother went missing. But in my 16th year of life, a change began within me." The sage started but was interrupted by his son. "A change, father?" his son asked. "Yes, my child, now let me continue, please." The sage spoke, wishing for no more interruptions. "I woke up on the day of my birth just as any other, and went into the village. Only to see everyone in the village looking at me skeptically, almost as if afraid to find out if I was an enemy or an ally. I ignored the looks of the people around me, and found one of my friends sitting at a bench outside of a small hut. When I approached him and asked him how he was doing, he looked me dead in the eye, and asked how I knew his name and what I wanted. This confused me to no end, so I quickly lost my temper and yelled at him like I always did in my times of my youth. Until my ranting was over, he realized it really was me, but when I asked him how could he forget me since we've been friends for a few months now, he simply pointed to the window of the hut, and told me to look at it. Just to amuse him, I went to the window to take a look at my reflection, and upon seeing my reflection I did what I would always do. I freaked out. Gone was my vibrant red spiky hair, and dark bluish eyes that everyone knew me by. But instead I had black spiky hair, and sapphire blue eyes that shined in the sunlight. The old sage stopped his story when his youngest asked him a question. "Father, I never knew you originally had blue eyes?" his son asked curiously. The old sage weakly chuckled at his mental wish to not be interrupted, but smiled nonetheless. "Yes, I had blue eyes up until my first trial Kami had set forth for me to accomplish. Now let us begin once more," the sage said, answering his son's question. Within a minute or so of panic I quickly thought upon what happened to me, and remembered my older brother fading into that strange light, as well as what he looked like as he faded away. I remember he had the same black hair, and the same sapphire eyes that I have now. That very night, as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard a soft female voice whispering for me to listen to her. Thinking that I was dreaming, I decided to go along with it, and so I listened to the soft voice. The sage started but stopped after coughing violently a few times. After his coughing fit ended, the sage looked to his son weakly, and put his small smile back onto his face once more. "My apologies, where was I?" the sage said, almost forgetting where he had left off. "Ah yes." The sage started up again. The voice then told me that the Sage of Six Paths must lay the paving stones for true peace for the world in his first lifetime. And that in the time the Sage of Six Paths' first life, the Sage of Time will be training and preparing in the afterlife for what his destiny entails. The voice then said that the Sage of Time has already ventured to the afterlife 3 years ago, and shall be reborn a generation before the Sage of Six Paths' second life. The sage finished with his thoughts wandering from within his mind. Even I don't fully understand what had happened to my brother, but I have the feeling that I shall know when the time is right. The sage spoke, saying his thoughts aloud to his son. I know without a doubt that in some way my brother is the Sage of Time, and that I shall meet him in another lifetime. I also know that this story is just as important as the first, my child, so remember it as well. The sage finished while turning to look back at his son before coughing violently once again, while putting his hand to his mouth to cover it. When the sage removed his hand, he saw that he had been coughing up small amounts of blood. Knowing that his time was very limited now, the sage decided that it was time for his to get his other sons and say their final goodbyes. That is the end of the second story, my child, and with it I hope you hold both of them close to your heart. The sage said with a smile. Also be sure to pass on both of these stories from my life onto your children, and your children's children. For it will be important for them to know. The sage explained, before his smile slowly shifted into a saddened one. I sense the feelings your brothers hold. Your oldest brother desires power. Your second oldest brother desires protection, but you alone desire something greater. True peace to fall upon the lands, just as I did. The sage said, slowly letting his smile return to his face. For that is why I have chosen you to be my successor. Do not speak of this to anyone, but your successor on your deathbed, as I do not want my children fighting one another, and ruining the small amount of peace I have created. The sage finished exhaling the breath of air that he had kept in his lungs. Now my child, fetch your brothers, as I feel the time is close for me to close my eyes for good. The sage said sadly, but with a smile still on his face. His youngest got off his knees, and bowed deeply to his father, and set out to retrieve his 2 brothers. When all 3 of them returned, they all said their final goodbyes to their father for the last time. As the light from the eyes of a legend finally faded away, the 3 brothers all smiled at their father, for he had closed his eyes, and embraced death peacefully with a smile on his face. Inside of Uzu, a 16-year-old young man with the name of Kensai Uzumaki, oldest child to the current head of the Uzumaki clan and heir of the clan, laid face down, passed out drooling in his bed, dreaming about his life. In this dream he thought about it all in a nutshell. He thought about his training, his parents, his sister, if he'd ever find love in this world, and the last thing, which was what was in store for his life. In his dreaming state he felt a calm and peacefulness he never experienced before in his 16 years of life, and he was enjoying the relaxing state he was in. With the thoughts and imaginary images flowing through his mind, he let his peaceful slumber continue on. As what Kensai expected to be morning when he woke up, he rose from his bed after hearing his mother calling for him to come down in an obviously irritated voice. Stretching his 5 feet 11 inches very toned and muscular body and rubbing the crusted residue from his sleep out of his eyes, he haphazardly put on his shinobi gear consisting of a black V-neck cut muscle shirt exposing his very defined pecs. Suggestion to all the females who saw him that the rest of his body was in fact just as defined, with fishnet armor beneath it, black Anbu-styled pants that went down to his ankles, and black ninja sandals, as well as a gray Chunin flak jacket with the Uzumaki family crest on the back. Strapping his katana to his side, he turned to leave his room, but in his zombified state forgot something. Spinning himself around, he went to grab his kunai and shuriken pouches he left on the nightstand next to his bed. After strapping them to his leg and belt, he turned and headed to the door, but once again stopped before reaching the knob. He muttered a small curse under his breath and turned around again to grab his whirlpool forehead protector. Walking over and grabbing it on the nightstand his kunai and shuriken pouches were at, he once again turned around to head for the door. Stopping before reaching the door, he turned to his left, turning to face the mirror. He figured he better inspect himself just to make sure he didn't look like he was sleeping in. Once again. He didn't want to hear his mother go on and on about how he shouldn't be so lazy and sleep in. Upon looking at the mirror, he ran his fingers through his spiky black hair that went wildly everywhere. Wait. What the fuck? Kensai screamed out, which scared all the birds sitting atop of any of his family's clan compound's roofs, all flying away in a panicked state of fear. Kensai, seeing his hair black, freaked him the hell out. And now he was pretty sure his parents downstairs knows something is up with him. Trying to calm himself down, he took a deep breath, straightened out his clothes a bit, and put his whirlpool forehead protector around his head, letting the newly discovered black-haired bangs drop in front of it, before heading out of his room and down the stairs. As he was about to reach the bottom of the stairs, he heard his parents in a heated discussion about his sister. He had forgotten that his younger sister had left for Konoha late last night for some reason, and was told she was going to be gone for a while. Something along the lines of a diplomatic mission or something. Kensai knew something was up about the whole deal with this younger sister because, well, who the hell sends a 12, almost 13-year-old girl not even halfway done with her begging ninja training on a diplomatic mission? Kensai hounded his father about more details pertaining his sister and her departing of Uzu but got nowhere. The only thing Kensai could think of was that it was an arranged political marriage and that did not sit well with him, so he asked his father if that was the case. His father said it was nothing of the sorts and that Kensai would be made aware of his sister's departure at a later time, ending the discussion. Kensai, sighing to himself, shakes the thoughts of his sister from his mind, and stilling his nerves of his earlier outburst from his surprise this morning in his room, and entered the kitchen. Making a bowl of cereal, and sitting down at the table, he began to eat his food. His parents, seeing their son enter the kitchen, stopped their discussion, and looked at their son with an eyebrow raised on each of them. What? Something on my face? Kensai growled at them, with a glare. It was Kensai's father who spoke first. Something of the sort. What's up with the hair? Ha ha ha. Kensai, getting a tick mark on his forehead, was about to snap at his father, but he saw his mother elbow his father in the gut for laughing before knowing what happened, effectively knocking the wind out of the powerful clan head. His mother then looked at Kensai and asked the same question, but in a more sincere way. What, your father? She gave his father a glare, but his father looks away innocently to avoid it. Means to say is, why is your hair black, Kensai? Kensai stopped eating and quickly chewed his food so that he can swallow it, and thought about it for a few seconds. I guess Kushina Ne gave me a going away present? You know how we are with each other, always pranking somebody, he said with a shrug of his shoulders. Readying his spoon, he resumed his attack on his breakfast once again. Kensai's mother and father gave each other a look to one another before looking back at him. Kensai once again stopped eating, not hearing anything from the two, and looked up to his parents once more. He then noticed his mother's eyes, and knew something bad was going to happen. Kensai, Kushina-chan left 2.5 days ago, also. She then took a deep breath. How can you freaking sleep that goddamn long? Do you know how irresponsible it is for a young man, no less a chunin, to be so damned lazy? I swear you're going to be mistaken as dead or a coma victim sooner or later. After that, their family's famous short tempers flared up between Kensai's and his mother. Once again. Kensai hated being right sometimes. God, Mom, how am I supposed to know that I slept for that long? I was asleep. After his outburst, Kensai quickly shut his mouth, noticing that his parents were looking at him with wide eyes as if he grew a second head or something. Now what is it? Not getting an answer from them after a few seconds, he slammed his fist to the table. I said, what is it you are gawking at, damn it? With that last outburst, his father quickly snapped out of his shock and looked at Kensai in what Kensai always called his father's professional mode. The look of a man who had seen and experienced many things, and not a lot of them pleasant. Quickly calming his temper down, Kensai did not want to get on his father's bad side right now. Kensai's father was a great man. He was fun and always joking around, always willing to listen, and always supportive of his two children. But at the same time, Kensai's father was also the head of the Uzumaki clan, and one does not become the head just by being fun. His father was a seriously powerful ninja, up there on the level of the cages of the elemental nations. While Uzu did not have exactly a cage for leadership. Uzu was led by the daimyo of the country that handled the matters of politics, while the head of the Uzumaki clan handled the military affairs. So in a sense, each head of the Uzumaki clan was the unofficial Azukage. Both leaders of which worked together in a great partnership of respect for one another, striving for the same goals. Backed with a small council of veteran shinobi of Uzu, the country of Uzu was always looking out for the best interest of its people and the best way to handle any situation without causing conflict with the other nations. Kensai's father, however, was a little different than past Uzumaki clan heads. He alone fought in many major battles in the days leading up to his taking over the clan, and over those years of battling he became feared by all who were unfortunate to meet him on the battlefield. So in that sense, a lot of people wouldn't want to get on his bad side for any reason. It was a shock for Kensai there for a second, remembering that this wasn't his goofy, funny, laid-back father standing before him in the kitchen who was cracking up and laughing at him. This was his clan's leader, and right now he demanded to be respected, and to be answered when he asks a question. Kensai stared straight into the eyes of his father, waiting for what he had to say. He then heard him say in a flat and serious voice, "Kensai, you need to be honest with me right now, because depending on what you remember, and what you know, will determine what's going on right now." His father asked seriously. Giving his father an odd look with his right eyebrow cocked, he asked Kensai something else. "What is the last thing you remember before going to bed?" Thinking about it for a few seconds, Kensai thought about his response to his father. "Honestly, nothing. I got back from that C-rank bodyguard mission to Taki the night before Kushina Ne left for Konoha. After spending the ride of the night with you guys, and saying goodbye to Kushina Ne, I just went to my room and passed out. It had been a long day, so I instantly was out like a light, smiling like an idiot while scratching the back of his head. For a few seconds he remembered something else. But when I was sleeping, I felt a calm and peacefulness I've never felt before, and in my dreams I was thinking about a lot of things, really, like training in our clan's ways to take over for you and mother, Kushina Ne, if I'll ever find the girl for me, and I was thinking about what my life had in store for me. That's about all I can remember." Kensai finished explaining. Hearing his father sigh, Kensai was about to ask what's wrong with his father, but his father cut him off before he could say anything. "Kensai, why I'm asking you this is because Kushina-chan not only left before you fell asleep, disproving she pranked you before she left theory, but that also in your little heated comeback to your mother your hair filled with chakra, making it grow out a bit longer," his father informed. Touching the back of his head, Kensai felt his hair, and noticed that it did indeed grow an inch or so longer. Before he could think too long, Kensai's father spoke again. "And that's not all, your hair only filled with chakra for a couple seconds, but it was a chakra signature different than your own but at the same time similar. But what was completely off was your eyes. They are bright sapphire blue right now, and while you were yelling they started glowing. Another thing is that you mentioned that you have never felt so peaceful in your dreamlike state, which makes me think that you perhaps found a way to find the inner calm of your soul like we find in ourselves while in deep meditation. Which would be the reason why you were sleeping for so long," Kensai's father said, pausing for a moment to let his words sink in. A few seconds passed by, and Kensai and his father remained in thought, while his mother just stayed silent, not wanting to get in the middle of her husband and her son's discussion. Kensai, you're lucky that I am the head of the clan right now, and that you will be my successor. If this wasn't the case, I'd be completely lost in this matter as you are now, but seeing how that is not the case, I know more of what's going on and what's going to happen. Kensai's father said, slightly confusing the boy. Not knowing where this was going, Kensai figured it was best to just let his father continue on. Before Kensai's father could speak, the earth shook, and chakra signatures all over the place became present. Through his countless battles and wars, Kensai's father quickly ordered his wife to go to the village and round up as many civilians she could find and take them to the evacuation tunnels so they can escape Uzu. Turning to his son, he called out, Kensai, follow me closely, do not break your concentration while we are running. With that, the family bolted out of their home and raced to their clan's compound. Once outside, everyone within the Uzumaki compound were gathered in their training areas, spread out in previously assembled groups, ready to be given orders to take action in case of emergency situations such as this. Kensai's father stood before them all, with Kensai himself standing at his father's side. Looking at his father from the corner of his eyes, he saw his father draw in a deep breath. It seems that my greatest fears have come to pass, my brothers and sisters. I have hoped that this situation would have never come, but it seems that our efforts have been all for naught. For it seems that Kumo has gathered a few nations to join them in our destruction. The leader of the Uzumaki clan yelled out to the crowd. Gasps rang out throughout the training fields after the crowd of Uzumakis heard the news. I know your fears, but remember that we of the Uzumaki clan have a duty to uphold, and we must protect all civilians and get them to the evacuation tunnels before we fully engage the enemies. Through our preparations, you all have been assembled into groups of 4, each group with 2 specialists in offensive attacks, a specialist in combat fuinjutsu, and a medical specialist. After the civilians have been escorted out of the village, each group of 4 shall engage the enemies. Remember, this is an act of all-out war, and an attack on our home shall be dealt with in the most brutal of ways. Take no prisoners, and kill all who are trying to destroy our home. Now go, Kensai's father ordered. Immediately after his father gave the order, everyone in the training fields vanished to escort the civilians away. Kensai. His father, getting Kensai's attention, turned to his father. Kensai, my son, this shall be your first war you take part in, and while I have the utmost faith in your skills as a shinobi, I can only worry about you as my son and heir. You must follow me, but before we go to the front lines, there is something we must do beforehand. With that, Kensai and his father vanished to his father's office. Once arriving in his father's office, Kensai spoke up, needing to know what was going on. Father, what is it that we must do that is more important than defending our homes? With all of our clan's strength and the other clans making up Uzu, we shouldn't have any problems with the invading countries. Kensai asked frantically, but seeing his father's face, he quickly regrets speaking out of line as well as his outburst. Hanging his head in shame, he mutters a quick apology to his father. Kensai, we are here right now before the battle because this is more important than us going to the front lines, his father said in a neutral voice. Kensai raised his head and looked on in confusion at his father's words. What we must do now is the ceremony of passing power to the current clan head of the Uzumaki to the next. Now, before you interrupt me with endless questions, remember we are needed elsewhere, and I as your clan leader, and most importantly as your father, know this is best right now. The red-haired man said. Taking a deep breath, his father spoke. For Uzu will fall, but we will not fall easily. Kensai, father said sadly. Kensai nodded his head in acceptance to the words the man before him spoke, and Kensai waited for what was next. In your upbringing as my heir, you have been slowly learning what it means to be the next clan head, as well as a few of the minor secrets that being a clan head entails. Now you shall receive your inheritance right now and title of the next Uzumaki clan head from me. Bring forth your fist in front of you, my son. Father instructed. Kensai slowly did as instructed, and when the action was complete, his father did the same while gently bumping into his fist. When their fists connected, Kensai was given a short instruction on what to do next before Kensai could really get too deep in thought. Kensai, the connection of fists between present and future clan heads of the Uzumaki has been a ceremony of sorts for all of the clan heads since the time of the Sage of Six Paths, and one that must not be forgotten. Nodding his head, Kensai gave his father all he needed to continue. There is a stone tile that blends in with the rest of the floor, 2 stones south directly of the center of my desk, and 1 stone to the east of those. The stone you are looking for can only be moved by having our blood drop upon it, allowing it to be lifted. Below that you will find that one of our clan's Kekkei Genkai is blocking what you seek. You will know what to do when you see them. His father continued. With that said, a small spark of electricity felt as if it came from Kensai's father to his fist, and with that spark came the sudden knowledge of how to move the chains. Now my son, we are running short on time, so I must make this quick. As part of you being the new clan head, you are to receive the 2 stories that have been passed down from our great ancestor, the first Uzumaki. You must read them, and upon reading them you shall start to understand why you look the way you do know. For I know without a doubt you are the Sage of Time Reborn. Kensai's father said in a serious tone and way about to continue, but Kensai quickly interrupted his father after hearing that. What the hell are you talking about? Sage of Time? What kind of crap is that? Kensai's father watched as his son blew up at the stress of emotions spewing forward out of him and just merely laughed. Ha ha ha, you really have no clue as to what's happening, and that's all understandable, but if only you could see what you look like when you have so many emotions running through you, you would understand that you are indeed very special. If you were about to attack me looking like that, I may be just a little scared. Just a little. His father said the last part with a smirk. Now calm down and head for the lower office. Find the stone and complete the ceremony. This last part is for you to do alone, which is good because I must leave now and help defend our home. Kensai stared at his father as he turned away preparing to leave, but Kensai stopped him before he could leave. Why do I have the feeling I won't see you ever again, father? Kensai asked sadly, letting his eyes drop to the floor. Why is it that I feel as if I am going to be left all alone? Why is it that the world can't live in peace, and forget their stupid petty greed and jealousy? What can I do if you all are gone? I'm not ready for this. I don't think I ever can be. Don't make me do this, father. Kensai said in a panicked voice, and fell to his knees, and started breathing heavily and shaking slightly. Seeing his son in such a state tore at his father's heart. Turning around, he walked over to his son and knelt down, and brought him to his chest and wrapped his arms around his son. I can't answer all of your questions, Kensai, but you will never be alone. You will have all of us in your hearts forever. You can never cut the bonds you have made in your life, and while losing us will hurt, you must be strong and hold your head up high, chest outwards, eyes bored into the direction of the world in defiance, and help proudly carry on our bloodline. There will be another Uzumaki, and you be at his side soon enough. The 2 of you will show the world that the Uzumaki never can truly die. Uzu can be rebuilt, and its people will come back when its 2 remaining Uzumaki survivors return, to reclaim their homeland once more. Kensai father spoke softly. Noticing Kensai relax a bit, and calm his breathing down, Kensai's father stood back up, and gave his last order to his beloved son. Now go and read the stories of the past, and help bring forth a great change in this world. And don't forget to give your mother and I lots of grandchildren. With that said, his father left in his shunshin with a large smile on his face, heading towards the battlefield. Wiping his tears from his eyes, Kensai slowly stood up on shaky feet and went to the staircase that led down to his father's lower office. Once at the desk, and observing the stones he was told about, he found the one in question. Kensai took a kunai from his pouch. He slit his palm open, and let the blood drop to the stone tile on the floor. Once the blood hit the stone, it glowed a soft blue light, and with the light faded, Kensai picked the stone up and set it aside. Looking at what lay beneath the stone caught Kensai's attention. Holy shit. When father said chakra chains, I didn't think of anything like this. Kensai said while examining the sight before his eyes. Studying what appeared to be golden chakra chains crisscrossing in every direction with a golden circle in the middle inscribed with a deep engraving of the Uzumaki clan's symbol whirlpool. Kensai started thinking back to that feeling he received when his father and his fists were connected. The answer to what he was looking at slowly came to his mind, and with it he lowered his still bleeding palm over the clan's symbol and let the blood flow downwards onto it, letting the blood channel along the deep engraving of the family's crest. Once the blood flowed all around the engraved channels and stopped at the middle, Kensai moved his hand away from it and watched in awe as the symbol glowed in a golden light and split in half, letting the golden chains retract back into the ground below. So the clan's symbol was a lock, huh? Kensai pondered as the last golden chain disappeared from his view, and saw the stone that was underneath them retract backwards into the ground as well, revealing a small pathway downwards. Descending down the pathway, Kensai came to a room that still had torches lit around it, lighting the room in front of him up. Upon inspecting the room, he noticed that it was a fairly good-sized room and was filled with shelves of scrolls and cases of very old and very unique weapons and armor. I gotta find the stories father spoke of, everything else can wait. Kensai said to himself while looking around quickly for what he was tasked with. He walked around the shelves of scrolls and saw what he assumed was what he was looking for. What he found was a very large and very old scroll, and above it a small plaque was inscribed, "The Sage of Six Paths and the Sage of Time." Noticing the Sage of Time part, Kensai quickly figured this was the scroll that his father told him he needed to read. Walking up to the stand that the scroll was placed upon, he went to grab it. When he placed both of his hands on the ancient scroll, he was encased in a golden yellowish light, and with that light surrounding him as well as filling the room. Kensai looked back to the room he was in, and noticed the flame-lit torches' flames were standing still. No longer dancing or giving off any heat, confusing the hell out of him completely. What the fuck? As if this couldn't get any more messed up. Kensai muttered under his breath. Glancing back to the scroll his hands were placed on, he picked it up gently, and sat on the ground. Kensai started slowly unraveling the first bits of the scroll. As the scroll revealed its story to its holder, Kensai heard a voice whisper into his ear. And that scared the shit out of him. It wasn't until the voice spoke its first words that he calmed down a little bit. "Do not be afraid, my child, as you are under my wing of protection right now." The voice said in a soft, gentle, and warm voice that made Kensai relax, waiting if the voice was going to speak again. "You may have noticed the changes that have happened to you, my child, and you need to know that they were not done just by chance, for you are the Sage of Time reborn. I know you may have questions, my child, but please let me speak this through to the end," the voice advised. Kensai decided that he should turn his body and meet the voice that was speaking to him, but as he turned he saw a beautiful woman with long flowing white hair, piercing bright blue eyes that could see straight into your soul, and a long flowing white robe. "Dear Kami," Kensai managed to mutter out. Then out of nowhere he saw the woman giggle. "How astute of you, my child, for I am indeed Kami," the woman informed. Hearing that, Kensai's eyes bulged out, and his mouth hung agape as if trying to catch flies in what was just said to him. Because to him, the woman before him was so beautiful that there was no question that she was indeed who she just said she was, Kami. "Now, my child, as your predecessors before you, you must read the ancient scroll. When finished I shall come back to you, so that you may start what you were destined to do." And with that the beautiful figure known as Kami faded away. Turning back to the scroll, Kensai started unrolling it right away, but stopped when he saw what was written down before him. "The passing of the Sage of Six Paths, huh? I thought he was just a figure of myth and legends," Kensai said to himself, still frazzled by meeting Kami herself of all people. Breaking out of his musings, he started about reading the scroll. Not skipping over any detail was not hard to do, for as the story itself captured Kensai in such great concentration that he couldn't even remember to blink at some times until his eyes started burn, as if his sister Kushina threw salt into them. Again. As he kept on reading the story, and nearing the end, he came across the oddest part of the story, a riddle of sorts. He couldn't make any sense of it but memorized it along with every other part of the story without hesitation, but not without questions of his own. What is with this riddle? Carrying 9? Seeking his fist. Wait. That couldn't happen to be similar to what father and I did in the ceremony of the new clan head, would it? And what about the questions that you have to ask yourself while in meditation? It all just seems strange, almost as if parts of the riddle itself are blocked off for anyone who see it except the one who is meant to make sense of it. Kensai spoke out into the room. "I really need to learn to stop talking to myself," Kensai said with a sweat drop. Shoving his pondering aside, Kensai finished the last of the story with an eyebrow raised. The Sage of Time and the Sage of Six Paths were to be reborn in later centuries? Well, I guess that makes sense in some ways, since Kami herself just told me that I was the Sage of Time reborn. Funny, I don't feel like some super amazing sage. Hell, I can't even meditate for very long. Once again stopping his thoughts and ranting, Kensai looked back down to the scroll and revealed the second story it held from within. Once revealed, Kensai looked upon the first words of the second story and had to stop. The Sage of Time, I really hope I can actually make some sense of this one. Kensai said, hopeful that the net part would shed some more light on his situation. With that said, he started reading the second story. It wasn't as long as the first story, but it made more sense to him than he thought it really would. So the Sage of Six Paths and the Sage of Time were brothers. But since they are supposed to be reborn into the world around the same time, wouldn't that mean that one of my Uzumaki clansmen outside that are fighting could be the Sage of Six Paths reborn? Rubbing his temples for a moment. God, all this thinking and yelling is giving me a fucking headache. Kensai yelled in frustration. Sighing to himself, he calmed down a bit. Kensai resumed his thoughts. Okay, I gotta think here and go over what I know, okay. 1. The Sage of Six Paths and the Sage of Time were brothers. 2. Both the Sage of Six Paths and the Sage of Time went through the same crazy-ass hair and eye change that happened to me this morning. 3. Said crazy-ass changes all happened on or a little after they turned 16. My birthday was a week and a half ago, so I guess that makes some sense. 4. When the Sage of Time left his brother, he said, he see him soon, but it was said in the first story of the Sage of Six Paths by Kami herself that the Sage of Time would be reborn, a generation, before him. Okay, so there's a good chance that the Sage of Six Paths reincarnation hasn't been born yet. Digesting what he thought out to himself, he felt a presence behind him. Spinning around to where the presence was felt, he came face to face with the same beautiful woman as from before. Kensai went to his knees and bowed deeply, touching his forehead to the floor. Kami-sama, Kensai said in the most formal and respectful voice he could muster. Hearing another giggle, Kensai looked up from his position on the floor and saw Kami covering her mouth to calm herself. Arise, my child, for such formalities are not needed here, Kami said with a smile on her face. With that said, Kensai rose to his feet, looking at Kami with eyes burning for answers. I see that you have finished the stories, and have understood more than those before you. That is good, my child, but the reason why you understand much more than those before you is because parts of the first and most of the second story were intended for you. Kensai was about to ask something when Kami held her hand up, halting his questions. Now anything you are about to ask will be answered in a moment, for I have much to say to you that you need to hear. Kami informed. Nodding his head, Kami continued. As you may have noticed when you first came to this room and found the scroll before you, that the golden light that encased you in this room in fact froze time around you. You have begun your process of finding the rest of yourself the moment you stepped into this room, and as we finish speaking I will tell you how to find the rest of yourself. Kami explained, and with her words she could tell the young boy in front of her was very confused. Thoroughly confused at being told he needs to find the rest of himself, Kensai nodded in acceptance anyways. As you've noticed that your hair and eyes have changed, you may have not figured out as to why yet. But your body in fact is becoming what it once was in your other life, and now that it has returned, one of the requirements is completed. The next requirement for you is to awaken your gift that I have blessed upon you in your previous life. As I said before, the light that encased this very room is proof that the second requirement has been completed as well. Now the third and final requirement is for you to find the other half of your soul that is still in the afterlife. Kami explained, helping Kensai understand a little bit more of what was going on. Kensai really had no clue as to what to expect after hearing that last part. The other two parts made sense, he supposed, but the last one was just plain odd. Going to the afterlife to find the other half of his soul? What the hell? Don't worry yourself too much, my child, as it is much easier than it seems. For I will take you to where you need to go, and I will take you to your soul's other half so that you may be whole once more. It will take time for you to become whole again, but you will return to the world once more at the same age you are now, and set out to find the Sage of Six Paths reincarnation. Now, my child, put the scroll back in its original spot and let us be on our way, for when the scroll is placed back in its position, the light will take us to where we need to be. Kami instructed. Nodding his head once again, Kensai went to the ancient scroll and rolled it back up, and placed it back on its stand underneath the plaque. When his hands left the scroll, he turned back to Kami and waited for what happens next. When Kami simply outstretched her, asking for his hand, he had no choice but to comply to her silent request. As he placed his hand in the woman's hand, the room they were in was no longer visible, as all Kensai could see was golden yellowish light all around Kami and himself, and felt a tugging feeling as if he was being pulled into the sky itself. As Kensai was taken away from the secret room of the Uzumaki, Stone blocks began to move into their prior positions and falling back into place, blocking off the entrance of the secret room from the staircase that came down from Kensai's father's lower office. As the last stone was set back, the golden chakra chains once again made their appearance, snaking every which way over the capstone that blocked off the staircase downwards. Once the last of the chains found their previous positions, the golden lock once again seemingly went back to its previous task at hand, denying all of the unworthy entrance to the room below. As the lock made its final adjustments, and the final click rang out silently, the deeply engraved symbol of the Uzumaki faded away, leaving it blank. Never to let anybody into the room besides the two who Kami chose. Arriving at the front lines of the battlefield, Kensai's father quickly took notice that the invading Kumo, Iwa, and Kiri forces were pulling out all of the stops in hopes for bringing about Uzu's demise. Fighting had broken out everywhere and mayhem ensued. Fallen casualties of war lay broken, lifeless, and bleeding, soaking the very ground that the Uzumaki called home red with their blood. Seeing such a sight before him enraged him to no end that such foolishness could happen to his brothers and sisters of Uzu. Disappearing once again, he went to collect his 25 strongest ninja in Uzu. The famed 25 ninja from Uzu that all had flee on sight orders in every nation's bingo book, the Crimson Demons. Flashback. During the Second Shinobi War, when Kensai's father was a much younger man of the age of 24. During constant battles with enemy ninja, he and 24 other ninja were sent as reinforcements from Uzu to aid Konoha push back Iwa, when Iwa was launching an attack on the Konoha forces outside the Land of Fire. The 25 ninja, consisting of men and women alike, raced from their home in Uzu to where the Konoha forces were locking into battle without even resting to restore their chakra from their previous battles. Running for a day and a half, they reached their allied forces, and quickly set to work demonstrating their mastery of ninjutsu, fuinjutsu, and kenjutsu to all around them. To those able to see them fighting, it was easily noted as a terrifying experience. To the Konoha nin, it was terrifying in a sense that only 25 of Uzu's nin were taking care of what well over 500 Konoha nin were trying to handle. To the attacking Iwa nin, it was just downright terrifying seeing a very small group of red-haired, sword-wielding Uzu nin completely turning the tides of the battle that was easily in favor of Iwa winning before their arrival. As the day of the battle started to come to an end, Konoha with the 25 Uzu effectively turned the battle in Konoha's favor completely when Kensai's father called out the general of the Iwa army, telling him to face him in combat. The general came through his remaining nin that were alive and stepped over the bodies that littered the ground below. As the general approached the younger red-haired Uzumaki covered in blood that called him out, he proceeded in the utmost caution. Kensai's father sheathed his sword and spoke to the general in an authoritative tone. "Tell your men to lay down their arms, and to go home. Know that if Iwa ever attacks Konoha again, Uzu will send more than just 25 of her nin to take care of you. That is a promise of a lifetime," Kensai's father yelled out. The general of the Iwa army was at his wits' end. His army dwindled down into the mere hundreds, a sliver of a fraction of what he brought to fight Konoha. And with no hope of victory in sight, he told Kensai's father that Iwa will return home, but not before saying that Iwa will never forget what happened here today. Upon Iwa's return home, the general of the army put the 25 Uzu nin that aided Konoha in their bingo books with this entry. The Crimson Demons of Whirlpool. Description: a group of 25, men and women, red hair, usually covered in blood. Affiliation: Uze Shogakure no Sato. Clan: Uzumaki. Skills: extremely high ninjutsu, kenjutsu, and fuinjutsu. Orders: flee on sight, do not turn back to face them. Your only hope is to somehow outrun them. Flashback end. Arriving in a secret room in Uzu, Kensai's father found his 24 partners in battle already waiting for him, ready to follow through with his specific orders. Looking around at the faces of all in front of him, Kensai's father smiled. "Brothers and sisters, it has been an honor and a privilege fighting by your side to maintain the peace we had up until this point. But it will be no more, for I have seen the forces we face, and fear even with our great might, and fearsome powers that we will be overrun, and Uzu will fall in a matter of days. I ask of you, my fellow Crimson Demons, that you band together with me once more, and show the world that we, the Uzumaki, do not go down easily." Kensai's father spoke to his comrades. With every one of the 24 agreeing with Kensai's father put a plan together. They may not be able to win, but Kumo, Iwa, and Kiri will definitely be hurting after the dust has cleared. After about 15 minutes or so of planning, everyone was smiling with a sickening wicked smile on their faces after agreeing upon the plan that Kensai's father had proposed. With a plan in their minds, the 25 Crimson Demons of Whirlpool left for the battlefield. As the battling in Uzu continued on, panic was evident everywhere. Screams of the injured rang out, and the wailing cries of those losing a loved one or somebody close to them die in their arms carried out through the air itself. Bringing a devilish smile to the face of the Shodem Raikage, he thought about how good it felt to bring Uzu down to its knees. His musings were cut short as the cages from Iwa and Kiri appeared before him. It seems everything is going as planned, the Mizukage spoke. The Raikage nodded in response and spoke up. It seems so, let's hurry this up and get it over with. I don't like being here more than I have to. The Raikage informed, but as soon as he said that 25 Uzu nin shunshined before the 3 cages. Kensai's father standing in the front of the 3 cages simply smirked at them. If you think we will really fall so easily to you, then you have thought wrong. Your greed, jealousy, and fear blind you in what you really need to see. The leader of the Uzumaki clan said confidently. The Raikage, getting irritated at hearing this, fired back. And what is it that I am not seeing? I am seeing a most wondrous sight. The Raikage said in a booming voice, while gesturing to the burning buildings of Uzu. Do you not see it? Your beloved Uzu is falling. Your people are dying. Your homes are burning. I think it is you that are mistaken, Kenshin. Uzumaki, he said with a sneer, I see it all. Replied the Raikage in an overconfident and arrogant way. Still with his smirk on his face, Kensai's father simply says. While that may be, you may see some things, but you fail to really see it all, and what you aren't seeing right now is us, the 25 Crimson Demons of Whirlpool standing before you, ready to destroy you 3 in the most gruesome of ways possible. Kensai's father yelled out. There were no time for words at this point. Kensai's father, the now identified Kenshin Uzumaki, and the other 24 Uzumaki Crimson Demons of Whirlpool, quickly launched an assault on the 3 cages. The battle raged on into the night of the first day since the attack on Uzu began, and morning broke over the mountains to the east of Uzu, and the fighting was still continuing in earnest. Kenshin and his group of elite 24 demon nin were pushing hard against the 3 cages but making little progress as the 3 cages ninja would keep interfering with the battle. Hours passed by and the fighting went on, and as dusk started to let the night sky start its descent of blanketing the earth below with its heavenly darkness. Over in the direction of Uzu, a giant pillar of golden yellow light shot up to the almost night sky. Kenshin looked over to see the light, to see where it was coming from. A genuine smile spread across his face as he gazed upon it. I love you, my son, make us all proud. Kenshin said in a quiet voice before turning his head back to the battle at hand. He called out to his fellow elites. Positions. After the order was called, each of the 24 elite demon nin of Uzu spread out in what seemed to be in random points. Hold. Another order was called out from Kenshin. Kenshin, once more looking over to the golden yellow light. Seeing it fade away, he gave what would be his last order, as he knew that after this last order, Uzu would fall completely, and that the only hope for its resurrection was his beloved son, and the next sage of 6 paths that was sure to arrive in the time soon to come. Most of his civilians that had been evacuated by now should be well behind the mountains. The ones who couldn't make it out were already killed, littering the streets of the village with their bloody corpses. His shinobi that he commanded were all essentially wiped out as Kumo, Iwa, and Kiri's reinforcements kept on coming, and would surely wipe out what little shinobi he had left in quick succession. Wondering in the back of his mind, he began to question, where was Konoha with their army? And why they weren't here to help in the battle when it started? They should have been here by now. Himself and the other 24 Crimson Demons had made it to the Land of Fire in a day and a half, so why couldn't Konoha get here to Uzu in that same amount of time? It's almost completely nightfall now, so 2 days is plenty of time to get here. Did they abandon their sister village? Had they abandoned family? Shaking all thoughts of Konoha from his mind, he calmed himself. So now was the time. He was going to die. But he was going to die on his terms, his way, and he was going to do it in such a manner that the world will forever remember what travesty had befallen on the peaceful country of Uzu. Kenshin, still standing before the Raikage, and a large number of his and the other cage's forces, with the other 2 cages elsewhere on the battlefield. Kenshin Uzumaki smiled widely, gathering every bit of chakra his body could muster in his beaten down and worn out body. He put his right hand into the air, extending his index and middle finger upwards as if pointing the heavenly night sky, almost as if wanting to get those in heaven's attention to what is going on down below. The other 24 elite demon nin that were already in position all raised their right hands, and pointed their fingers to the night sky as well. Then all of them started flaring up their chakra as well, feeling their leader's chakras skyrocket from the battlefield. Kenshin, still smiling widely as ever, felt his fellow elite's chakras skyrocket as his, and with the last of his elite's chakra peeking out, he finally ordered out. Uzumaki Arts, Sacrificial Spiral. With their leader's last order and attack called out, the other 24 Crimson Demons followed suit and let the chakra they were holding go, following their leader. The Raikage looked on in horror at what he was seeing coming from leader of Uzu. Kenshin was enveloped in dark red chakra with a black outlining the red. His usual dark blue eyes that normally showed the world his mischievousness, cunning, and wisdom were no longer present. His eyes only held 2 things within them: bloodlust and power. They were blood red, and glowing, with nothing present in them besides bloodlust in its truest form, ready to be unleashed upon its prey. The Raikage quickly started to think of a way to avoid the impending doom that he was sure to come. Even with his lightning armor or his black lightning techniques, he couldn't hope to defend anything on this level. Quickly he found that he had no way out. The random points that he had thought the other Uzumakis were at were in fact carefully articulated points. With Kenshin in the middle, and all around him the others were in a carefully set in a spiral pattern. In nothing but pure desperation to save whatever men he could, he called for them to fall back, but he quickly found that his voice had been drowned out by the sound of sheer power was screeching around the battlefield. Wind was whipping around the columns of deadly chakra the last standing Uzumakis were emitting outwards of their bodies. Thunderclouds started forming in the night sky, covering the nearly full moon, and stars that were trying to provide the earth below with light, and the now cloudy night sky started shooting lightning throughout it as if the lightning itself was dancing. The earth beneath each of the 25 Uzumakis started to give way, cracking as if a great weight was being forced upon it, which then turned to small 4-foot wide 2 feet deep craters. As the feeling of dread kept on rising, every ninja on the battlefield could do nothing but stop and watch. None of them able to move, none of them able to cast a jutsu to even attempt to stop what was going on. They could do nothing to stop the hellish scene playing out before them. These 25 red-haired, glowing red-eyed, blood-drenched demons were going to kill them all. Glaring straight forward to the Raikage with his giant smirk still ever present on his face, Kenshin spoke for the first time in what seemed to be an eternity after the amazing display of power that played out before all on the battlefield. In what could only be called a demonic voice, Kenshin screamed out to the battlefield. For what you all have done to our homes, our families and loved ones, and for our country, we, the last Uzumaki, sentence you all to death. May Kami show mercy on your souls, for we sure as hell won't. Kenshin screamed, effectively making everyone present pale at his declaration. With that being said, the 25 last Uzumakis, all engulfed in their deadly auras of chakra, suddenly one by one, starting at the furthest one, shot their chakras skyward in a red and black swirling pillar of chakra. Once it became Kenshin's turn, the last jutsu of the Uzumaki clan would be used. Well, until a later time of course. But as Kenshin's chakra pillar reached the sky, the points looking like a spiral where the Uzumaki stood, all connected together. And once the pillars connected together, a blinding light raced out across the lands. Following the blinding light, an intense heat spread at insane speeds outwards in all directions of Kenshin's body, hitting any and every living thing it came in contact with. As the heat hit everyone, their bodies were destroyed on a cellular level, essentially erasing their very existences in a mere blink of an eye. When the dust settled and one could look upon the battlefield once more, those who survived could not describe in words what they saw. For the battlefield itself, that the last 25 Uzumakis took their last stand on board the very crest of their clan. Estimating 20 feet deep and 20 feet wide, the channel of the crest sprawled out across the battle-scarred landscape for about a half a mile in a perfect spiral. What baffled the invading force just as much as the giant spiral in the battlefield was that everyone was gone. No bones, no corpses, nothing but the earth, blackened with soot in a 2-mile radius of the spiral. With no real sense of what happened, the Mizukage appeared at the outer part of the soot-covered landscape, missing his left arm from an obvious self-inflicted wound. Holding onto the stump of what is left of his arm to stop the bleeding. One of his surviving mist ninja ran over to him and yelled out. "Mizukage-sama, what happened to you? And what happened just now?" Akiri Shinobi asked frantically. The Mizukage stared outwards, not taking his eyes off the sight before him. "What has happened is very clear. First, we just won this war. 2. The Uzumaki and Uzushio are no more. 3. The Reikage and Tsuchikage have both been killed in that attack. And finally, I was nearly killed along with the Tsuchikage, but I managed to shunshin far enough away before I was engulfed in that attack like the others. As I appeared, I came to a place of distance I thought to be safe, but as I saw the attack from the Uzumakis still approaching me, I quickly stood guard, and while that attack came to me, it tried to claim me once again, but before I could try and shunshin again, the attack touched my left hand and started destroying my body. So I simply cut my arm off, and shunshined in hopes that cutting my arm off would save my life." The Mizukage explained before taking a deep breath of air to try and numb the pain before turning around to some of his men. "Now go find me a fucking medic," the leader of Kirigakure ordered. After the Mizukage received his medical attention, he called for all the surviving invading forces, and told them about their victory over Uzu. He also told them about the black soot covering the lands of Uzu, telling them that setting foot into the village would be ill-advised as the soot itself is a residue of the attack the Uzumakis had used, and would destroy all those who touched it. With what everyone saw, and how many still remain after that attack, everyone agreed that the place formerly known as Uzushio would be a place nobody would venture to ever again. With the invading forces still in front of the only cage left, the Mizukage gave an order to all. "The war is over, go back your respected homes, and celebrate with your comrades." The Mizukage ordered out. With that, the invading forces left to head back to their respected villages. With the horrors of what they experienced in the war against Uzu forever engraved into their minds, they made their way back to their homes. But for as each nin of the invading force was heading home, he or she had something deeply disturbing plaguing their minds. They had only survived because of sheer luck alone. They were just lucky enough to be far enough away. Being strong, or knowing jutsus, or wielding a kekkei genkei didn't even matter. It was just by luck the Uzumaki didn't wipe them all out. It was just luck that there was only 25 of them and not more. If there were more, that last attack could have killed every one of them. But it was by that luck alone that they are going home right now. Unfortunately, the fear that Kirigakure had towards Uzushio only grew after the war, and had not gone away like they were expecting it to, if Uzushio had indeed disappeared from the picture. But now, after it's all said and done, they were just going to have to accept that fear. As Kensai was taken away from his homeland of Uzu by the golden light with Kami by his side, Kensai couldn't help but think that it was very wrong of him to have left like this. It was going against practically everything that was ingrained into his mind as he was raised. He remembers hearing his father's words as a child when his training first began at the age of 9. In his frustrated state, flashback, "Now Kensai, before I start teaching you the shinobi arts and the ways of our clan, you must answer me this, my son. What do you think being an Uzumaki stands for?" Thinking about it for a little bit, Kensai answers his father's question. "To be strong, and protect those who need protecting," Kensai replied. Hearing his father's quiet laughter, Kensai can't help but feel he answered wrong and was going to be scolded, but that thought quickly left him as his father told him the correct answer. "I am amazed at how smart and how easily you pick up on things, my son, but there is more than just being strong and protecting people that makes us Uzumaki so great. We of the Uzumaki have very large chakra reserves, and while that means all of us have the potential to be extremely powerful, that doesn't exactly matter. What being an Uzumaki really means is this. Listen well, and forever ingrain it into your young mind. To be an Uzumaki is to put one's family, friends, comrades, and country first. Forever protecting the precious bonds that you have created with the people around you. We of the Uzumaki have sworn ourselves to the people of Uzu to protect them so long as our bodies are blessed with the air in which our lungs receive. An Uzumaki is not bound by such petty things such as political marriages, for the better of the clan, for as we believe one should be able to pursue love and happiness on their own means. Even if the person you fall in love with is not from within Uzu herself. And Uzumaki always tries to maintain what little peace we have left in this world, even in the midst of wartime. In the whole history of our clan, never once has any of us betrayed their comrades, friends, or country, for if one so happened to manage to do so, it would forever shame our clan. Kensai's father explained with a small smile on his face. Flashback end. Coming out of his thoughts, he realized he no longer felt the feeling of being dragged upwards, and no longer saw the golden yellow light that was around him from before. He was in a place that he could only describe as pure nothingness. Kensai turned to look for Kami, who was next to him. What or where is this place? After hearing his question, Kami smiled warmly and responded. This place is a side dimension of the afterlife. The Sage of Time, or you, in your past life created this place during the time of your training. This place was created when you unlocked your gift that I gave you all those centuries ago. In this side dimension you shall have to find the rest of yourself. Kami explained. The rest of myself? How would I even be able to do that when there is nothing here? I don't understand, Kensai asked, confused. Kami, seeing Kensai's frustration and confusion written on his face, decides a small hint is in order for him to move the process along. Kensai, I shall give you a small push in the right direction so that you may start. But, before I do that, there are a few things that you need to understand in order to grasp your situation. Seeing Kensai nod, she continued on. Now I know that after everything that has happened to you in this short period of time has hurt you, and inside you wanting nothing more than to make it all go away, and have things return back to normal as they once were before this. But I'm afraid that cannot happen, and for that I am sorry, my child. Kensai looked at Kami with grief-stricken eyes, with tears starting to well up in the corners of his eyes, begging for her to make him feel better. Now listen carefully to what I have to tell you, Kensai. Kami ordered softly. How can I not give you my full attention? You're Kami, you're amazingly beautiful, and I'm kind of stuck here with just you. Giving you my full attention isn't that hard. Kami-sama, Kensai said in a quiet voice. Kami gave Kensai another saddened smile before continuing. With time, my child, you shall be able to come to terms with what has happened, and you shall once again look at life with eyes full of hope, eager to find your place in the world below once more. Now I believe it would be best if I told you what will happen to you while you are in here. While you are trying to find the rest of yourself, the world below will continue on as normal. The flow of time will continue as it normally does, while time inside of this side dimension, the flow of time passes by at an incredibly slow pace. An hour that passes by inside of here equals a year to the world below. When you manage to become complete being once again with your other self, you will return to the world below the same age as you are now. Taking in a short break so that Kensai can process everything she has said so far. Now before I leave you to start your trial I have set for you, I will leave you with a few hints of sorts to help you. To start your search for the other part of yourself, you must look inwards, Kensai. Also, when you return to the world below and start your search for the Sage of Six Paths, go to where the leaves dance in fire. He will be there. Remember this as well, Kensai. The longer it takes for you to find yourself, the older the Sage of Six Paths will become, so if you take too long he may die of either natural causes or of something entirely different. Without the Sage of Time next to the Sage of Six Paths, the world will be destroyed forever. With that, Kami faded away, wishing Kensai luck in his trial. After Kami had left Kensai all alone, he started thinking of what to do. Not able to make any sense of anything at the moment, Kensai did what he always did when he was frustrated and confused while alone. What the fuck? I'm not smart enough for this shit. Kensai screamed out, his ranting and raving quickly stopping when he remembered Kami's last words of advice about how if spent too long in here the Sage of Six Paths will grow older. And without him next to him. Aw shit, this sucks. Kensai grumbled out. Kensai sat down on the nothingness. Or was it a floor of nothingness? Well, whatever it was. He was sitting down, crossing his legs, with his hand to his chin. He continued on with his thinking. Okay, Kami said, for me to start I need to look within. I can only think of a few ways to do that. Either that'd be to cut myself open and look inside me. Shaking his head violently in denial at the thought. Yeah right. Like that'd be how I do this. Ha 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 ha. Kensai said, laughing at his own idea. Scratching the back of his head stupidly, he began thinking once more. Okay, then the only other way I can think of would be meditating. Ah crap. I hate meditating, but that seems the most logical thing to do. I mean, Cammy herself told me to look within, and meditating seems like her kinda thing. My first option would be something I would have to really consider if Yami was the one who gave me this advice, but seeing how he didn't, I think I better just start meditating. Kensai said to himself. Taking a deep breath, he went into a Zen meditation position and closed his eyes. After what seemed to be a few minutes, or was it hours? Kensai couldn't tell. All of this slower time in here and faster time in the world below crap was starting to give him one massive migraine. His eyes opened again, and seeing that he was once again in the same place he was brought to with Cammy. Why can't there be a shortcut for meditating? Kensai mumbled out. Deciding that he better try it again, he took another deep breath. Calming his body, he slowly released his breath. Slowly inhaling another breath of air, Kensai calmed his mind, and once again started meditating. When his eyes closed, he noticed something different this time. He thought he could see a small blue dot in the blackness of his closed eyes. Questioning to himself in his mind, he tried to figure out what it was while staring at the small blue dot in the distance of his mind. He then noticed that whatever he was thinking, the small blue dot could be appeared before him, almost as if the two were standing next to each other. He decided that it must be a clue of some sorts, and kept on comparing other things to the small blue dot. When he came to the conclusion that he couldn't figure out what it was, he waved his hands around in frustration. Wait, what? Kensai said, snapping out of his meditation with his spoken words. He had to rethink what he just saw. Did I just move my hands from within my mind? That's just plain weird. But then again, if I can move my arms around within my own mind, maybe I can move other parts of myself, or maybe myself in general? Well, better at least give it a shot. Don't want to be stuck here forever. Kensai concluded, closing his eyes once more, getting relaxed in the same way as before. He quickly found himself in the same black area with the same small blue dot. After seeing the blue dot again, Kensai checked to see if what he saw with his arms last time did indeed happen. And when he moved them again, he saw that they do move. With that knowledge, he moved his foot, and rolled his foot. Knowing that he can move parts of himself now, he decided to just skip the rest of the checking his body and imagined himself whole within his mind. Seeing himself come into existence from inside his mind, he started walking towards the small blue dot. After a little bit, the small blue dot became larger, as if he was closing in upon something in the distance. The walk quickly became a run. And when seeing the blue dot become larger and larger, the run became an all-out sprint until the blue dot started filling out into a shape. Still sprinting towards whatever the blue dot had become, he continued towards it until he was close enough to see that the blue forming mass had become the form of a person. Pushing the sprint even faster, he closed in on the blue person. Arriving in front of the blue person, Kensai noticed that the person in front of him had no distinguishing feature, no hair, eyes, clothes, nothing. Just an outline of a person. Decided to see if the thing in front of him could speak. Kensai spoke out to it. Hello? Kensai asked. Noting that he didn't get a reply, he decided to try again. Hello, my name is Kensai Uzumaki, what is yours? And what are you doing in my mind, if you don't mind me asking? Kensai questioned. Upon asking his question, he saw the blue figure move slightly, almost as if it was stretching out its limbs from standing up too long, stiff as a board. Well, hello there, the blue figure said. I wasn't expecting any visitors anytime soon. Or ever, for that matter. The figure chuckled at his own words. Yeah, I'm kinda here to find something. Perhaps you could help me find what I'm looking for. What's your name? You never told me, Kensai asked. The figure moved his hand to its chin before responding. Well, now that is a good question, my friend. I don't either remember or know my name, but I do have a title if you'd like to hear that instead. The figure spoke. Sure, I guess, as long as I have something to call you by, Kensai replied. The figure removed its hand from its chin, and said, I am the Sage of Time, for that is all I've been able to really remember up until this point. Kensai looked at the blue figure with an eyebrow raised and a skeptical look on his face. So you're the Sage of Time, huh? That's kinda weird, cuz you don't look like a sage, or a person for that matter. You look like a... Stopping his sentence upon realizing what the blue figure really is. Soul, Kensai finished. The blue figure tilted its head to the side after hearing Kensai speaking. Yes, you'd be correct. I am the Sage of Time in soul form. I could only come here after leaving my human body on Earth and coming to the afterlife to do what Cammy had instructed me to do. The figure informed. Kensai quickly dropped his skeptical look and shot out. Then you are what I am supposed to find. Cammy had brought me here as well after all of these weird things happened to me. She said that I am the sage of time too. So you must be the other part of me that I need to get to make myself whole again. Kensai said, excited that he had found what he was told to look for by Cammy. The blue figure put its hand to its chin once again, thinking, well, that makes sense then, seeing as only Cammy herself can bring a person to limbo, the side dimension of the afterlife. Ah, it's all coming back to me now. Cammy told me that the only person it'd ever see in here would be myself reborn. Well, let's get this started then, the soul suggested. The blue figure then put his fist outstretched from his body towards Kensai. Kensai, catching on, quickly did the same, allowing the two's fists to bump into each other. As their fists met, Kensai noticed that the figure was being drawn into himself through his fist. What's happening? Kensai said, voicing his concern. He blue figure simply said. We are becoming one, once again. This will hurt a bit. The soul informed. After the figure's voice stopped, Kensai's eyes grew wider as he saw the figure be quickly sucked into him through his fist, followed immediately by an excruciating pain all over his body from his toes to the top of his head. As the pain intensified even more, Kensai's concentration completely shattered, kicking him out of his mind. Ah, damn it, what the holy fucking hell is happening to me? I feel like my fucking mind is going to be liquefied and about to explode. Gah, Kensai screamed out, trying to push away the intense pain that was coursing throughout his body, to where he could slowly started to get himself under control to where he didn't have to scream out. Gritting his teeth as hard as he could, he finally cracked. Why couldn't this be less painful? Gasping as the pain increased once again, method. Fuck. And with that, Kensai passed out from the intense amount of pain and stress that was being put on his body. Slowly fading back into Kensai's mind, and reaching over to Kensai's still body, Cammy smiled, and whispered to herself. I am truly amazed that you stayed conscious at all after the other part of your soul rejoined you. But for you to stay conscious during the first half of the memory recovery. You are indeed someone incredible, Kensai Uzumaki. Cammy spoke with warm motherly smile on her face as she waited for Kensai to reawaken so that the next part of his journey may begin. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.